Hello and welcome to Liam's Lyceum. Everyone, I'm your host Liam, aka Hanuvar, and today I'm doing a tag. I have some thoughts on tags before I do this real quick. I don't do tags very often. I used to do them much more often when I first started my channel, um, almost 4 years ago now. And I just find tags to not be satisfying normally. There's like not enough essence, there's not enough value in doing a tag for me. I know a lot of people find them valuable, and a lot of people find them fun. So that's great for other people. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do tags or whatever. I just like normally when I look at them, I'm like, I think it's actually fun to create them. I've only done one. Kind of worked on doing another one, but um, I just I don't know. I just for some reason it just doesn't satisfy me normally when I get through these tags. But regardless, I felt like I should do this one because I've been tagged several times and not done a tag, and so this is the latest time I've been tagged. So apologies to anyone who's tagged me and I didn't follow through. But T from Nerdite Adventure tagged me for the Spring into Adventure tag. It is the first day of spring when I'm recording this. It's going to come out after that, of course, but uh, so it seemed appropriate. And so let's get into the questions real quick. I kind of thought about these beforehand, but not very much. So, what's your favorite adventure book? Is question number one. My favorite adventure book is The Lord of the Rings. I would say that is an adventure book. I think here I can even look it up for you. Adventure involves like risks. This is implied like newness to it. It is a coming of something, right? It's related to Advent. Um, but right, it comes from Latin adventurous, which means about to arrive or happen. There's this archaic sense of the verb, which comes from the Latin as well, actually, but it's had a little bit of a different path in English, but really it's pretty much the same path. And it means to risk or hazard, right? To run the risk of or to dare. And I think that is one thing that I think of when I think of adventure fiction is this daring, right? And while that might often for me, that also comes with this idea of like swashbuckling, daring do, like just like stories like that. But that's not entirely what comes to mind, right? Because I'd say Lord of the Rings, right, for this question, which is not swashbuckling at all. But it is adventurous, right? It's going into this unknown. There's very much risks going on in the book, right? So, yeah, it is my favorite book, or at least fiction book. So, yeah. And then what's the newest or most recent? So, most recently published adventure book you've read? So I did think about this one because I don't actually read a lot of recently published stuff, and so the way I'm going around this one actually is I'm going to say Waltharius, translated by Brian Murdoch. It's not a recent story. It's like a 10th century maybe. I'm kind of blanking on it now, but the Uppsala Books came out with a translation by Brian Murdoch late last year, and that is an adventure epic. I guess it's actually really short, but it is about fleeing from the court of Attila the Hun and facing off against um, Waltarius, facing off against several men, and fighting them until they get maimed, pretty much. So, yeah, it's a fun adventure book. And what's the oldest or earliest published adventure book you've read? This gets an idea of publication and then what counts as actually publication, right? Because if I leave it in a jar by the Dead Sea and it gets found 2,000 years later, I mean, what counts as publishing there? When I left it in the jar when it was found, does it count as publishing at all? Because what is it like? So, and because I have read uh, the Epic of Gilgamesh, which I think counts as adventure. Um, so there's that. Um, yeah, so maybe that, maybe the Epic of Gilgamesh. If we're gonna go with things that are like more strictly speaking have been published in a way that we would think, maybe well you'd have to go to like the early modern period probably, and then when you go to the early modern period, I'm not sure what the earliest book is I've read. Um, I guess like Don Quixote or Simplicius, Simplicissimus, which both seem kind of like adventure books. So, um, maybe one of them. And then, who's your favorite adventure book author? So when I think strictly of adventure, when I'm thinking like historical adventure, right, or something like that, I think of Arthur Gilchrist Brodeur, um, who wrote. I think I have one of his books pretty readily available here. Right here. He wrote a few things I've read. Oh, sorry about that. But he wrote this historical adventure stories. They're like novelettes mostly, but I've also read a couple novels by him. Like In the Grip of the Minotaur is probably my favorite, and then He Rules Who Can. So that's who when I think of like that, when I'm thinking of adventure as a genre, right? Like the Adventure Magazine or All Story or something like that. That's what I think of. But also strictly adventure doesn't have to be fictional in a sense. Like I mean, historically, it's still fictional. I read mostly fiction. That comes up in another question, but I think Fritz Leiber, he wrote a lot of adventure fiction, particularly as fantasy, as Fafhrd and Grey Mouse or stuff. Jack Vance wrote a lot of good adventure fiction, mostly kind of with the sci-fi tint. But so I mean, like, who's my favorite adventure book author? I mean, I feel like I could just say Tolkien because my favorite adventure book is Lord of the Rings. So that's cop out, I guess. Anyways, what's your favorite film adaptation of an adventure book? So this is the cop out, actually. Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy, because I really don't think in terms of adaptations that much. I do like movies. I don't watch nearly as many movies or any other form of adaptation compared to how much I read. So I don't know. I guess maybe I like Merlin a lot. That is a TV show that is adapting Arthurian myth, which is highly adventurous. So yeah, those I guess. And then the Jackson's adaptation though for Lord of the Rings is very much inferior to the books, but it's still pretty decent. So, hey, who's your favorite adventure book character? Again, this is a little difficult for me to say. Like Tom Bombadil? No. So I don't know. Again, because again, I could just go all with Lord of the Rings stuff. I have done that in a tag before, actually. But maybe we'll just go with Hanuvar, Chronicles of Hanuvar. I do like Hanuvar, the more recent stuff, adventure fiction. He often does have a buddy with him rather, and I know T likes to use that as a marker, something you're doing with someone else. So, yeah, maybe Hanuvar. Anyways, 7. Do you prefer fiction or nonfiction adventure books? Fiction. What would you read as like a nonfiction adventure book, like a memoir type of thing, like something that's just like historical, and then it's, but even then, it'd almost certainly be fiction. Like it's a fictional, like you can't say like every word they said is actually happened. Maybe there are stuff like that. I mean, like I know you read medieval things and they'll say like, oh, this person said this, and like I wonder how accurate that is, right? But so anyways, yeah, fiction, I guess. Then number 8, do you consider yourself adventurous? Why or why not? So yes and no. I think it depends on what it is. I like to do new things. I like to do old things, in a sense, but old things I'm not familiar with. But I also like planning it out. I like to take my time with it. I very much don't. I'm not by someone that flies by the seat of their pants. So, yeah. So yes and no, I'd say. I also get very anxious doing some new things. And so I think it takes time to get comfortable doing some of that stuff, but it is enjoyable still. So I don't know. Yes and no. I mean, what is adventure? I don't know if it's taking risks. Yeah, I don't know. The risk is I'm gonna make food that is inedible or something, but I try out like a medieval recipe. I don't know. So anyways, what's your favorite genre to combine with the adventure genre? I guess fantasy. You can call fantasy a genre. Bildungsroman, sci-fi. I guess I don't know. Anyways, and then 11. Do you play or have you ever played adventure-themed games, video games, board games, tabletop, or RPGs? Yes, lots. I played lots of video games that I would say are adventure games. I mostly do actually. I don't do a lot of board games. I don't even know how you do an adventure board game. That sounds unadventurous just by the nature of it being a board game. But tabletop RPGs, yes, I do a lot of those these days. Or even like video games, but without the video part, maybe. No, I guess like muds. I was playing a mud earlier this year, Toro mud. Anyways, but yeah, it's fun. And then number 11, keep this short here. Tag some people. I'm gonna tag for Raf Blue Tax. Blue Tax. I don't know how to say that properly. My German is terrible, and I'm a philologist, so that's embarrassing. Anyways, yeah, Raf. I guess Raf, if you want to do a tag, I know you've mentioned before not getting tagged very often. So if you want to do one, spring into adventure, Raf. Go right ahead. Anyways, let me know your guys' answers, or anyone who wants to do it, wants to feel tagged, I guess. Otherwise, then you're tagged. Tag grid.